Have you recently heard of Create Aeronautics? Tried to build yourself an airship and have it go horribly wrong? Well, I'm here to help you fix that today. We're going to be going over some of the basics to help you avoid these situations. The first thing we're going to be going over is your center of gravity. Now, this is by far one of the most important things when building an airship. If your center of gravity is off and you have too much weight in the back, you'll end up exactly like that video I showed before. Now here's a really good example of this. I have a pillar hanging from a rope. You can see this green point is the center of gravity, and it's also the pivot point. Now if I was to add a bunch of weight on this side, you'll see that it starts pivoting. The heavy side goes down, and the light side points straight to the sky. Now this is a really good example of exactly what happened in that video I showed you. Now one way to counteract your center of gravity being off to one side is to use a heavier block on the other side. For example, we have 4 light wood blocks on this side, which is being counterweighted by these 2 heavier blocks of industrial iron. Another example of how to counteract this is you can try to simulate weight by using thrust. So if I turn this fan on, you'll see that it starts to level out. And that is because this fan is pushing out the same amount of thrust as these blocks weigh. Another option is the smart propeller. As you can see here, the side with the propeller is weighed down quite a bit, but if I was to activate it, it will start to level out until it reaches its desired thrust. Now, this can be counterintuitive, as if you were to increase the thrust more, it will of course raise. It will still keep the propeller level, but now this side has too much thrust and is higher in the air. Next, I'm going to show you an example of how your pivot point in relation to your thrust can affect your airship. If we look at this example here, it is perfectly balanced. But as soon as I activate the thrust on one side, it's going to start tilting. And that's because the pivot point is in the middle here, and the thrust is below the pivot point. Now, if we were to activate the other one, it'll do the exact same thing in the other direction. Whichever side is pushing will point the opposite side straight in the sky. Now here's an example of if the thrust is above the pivot point. If I was to activate this, as you can see, since it is above, the opposite side will start to point down. And if I do the same on the opposite side, the exact same thing will happen in the opposite direction. Next, I'm going to briefly go over how the balloons work with the airships. In front of me, I have a sliced example of the balloon. As you can see here, when we have the hot air burner directly underneath, it needs a clear path into the balloon. Now, this red glass is an example of the space inside the balloon, and is an example of air when it gets heated up. Now, if there is enough hot air, the balloon will start to raise. Here is a real-time example of that. As you can see, the balloon is currently deflated, but if I was to flick this lever and activate that hot air burner, the balloon will slowly start to raise in the air. Now, how you attach the balloon to your actual ship is also very important. In this example, I've attached it off-center. So if I was to activate the thrust, as you can see, it sways around a bit, and when the thrust is not active, it is not level. Another important factor is the weight. As you can see here, I have lots of blocks of industrial iron, and it takes a very big balloon to start to raise that. But as the balloon fills, it will start to raise those blocks and start floating. Are you keeping up so far? If you are, make sure you like, comment, and let me know which part you were getting the most confused with. Other than that, we're going to move on to the steering next. Now the steering can be quite complicated if you're not careful. Now the preferred method to steer is usually with one of these, the steering wheel. And this works by right-clicking it and dragging left or right. When connected using gears and a swivel bearing, it allows you to rotate a block on that axis. Now, I find the one-to-one gearing to be a little bit too sensitive, as if you were to turn this much and have something steer that much, you're going to be turning on a pretty crazy angle. Now, what I like to do to resolve this is to have a simple gear ratio. Now, as you can see, I have a small cog going into a big cog, and that slows it down by about half. So now, when I turn, it doesn't move nearly as much. Now we have gone over the basics such as counterbalancing, thrust, lift, and steering. With all of this information, it should make it much easier to build a functional airship in your world, whether that be creative or survival. Now, lastly, I'm going to show you a very simple setup with all of those concepts combined. As you can see here, I have a bare bones concept. At the front, we have the heavier blocks for the counterweight and the lift. In the center, we have the steering with the gearing ratio, making it slower so it's less sensitive. And at the back, we have the engine attached to a couple of gearboxes and the thrust. If I was to turn the steering wheel, it will turn this. And that's all you need for a functioning airship other than the rest of the airship. Thank you guys for watching the video, and with all of that, hopefully you too can make a functioning airship. If you liked it, make sure you like and subscribe, and if you want to see anything else, let me know in the comments.